Yeah, no, I guess people would want to kind of know why a dude from Crown Heights, Brooklyn, would want to look at a document that was produced in 1965 by then Secretary of U.S. Department of Labor. After that, a senator here in New York State. And why we want to go and look at that kind of document, one of the things I would say is, the first thing I would say is, the document came out in 1965. And interestingly enough, in 1965, this backdrop and where I am now is where I grew up. I grew up swinging on these swings, sliding on these slides, seesawing on these seesaws. Later in life, playing handball on these courts, playing basketball on those courts, chasing girls around the park, playing hot peas and butter, and all of those kinds of things. So, that report speaks to my life, and I've watched everything that Moynihan talked about in that report play itself out, not only in my life, but many of the boys and girls that I grew up with right here in this neighborhood. And so 50 years later, or almost 50 years later, in 2015, we're looking at a report that basically forecasted the fact that black families would be struggling in a way that America would have to deal with it here in 2015. Much of the numbers that it spoke to with respect to family formation, 29% of black babies back then were born into out of wedlock households. Today that number is 73%. And I was one of those families, and many of the friends in my community fit that statistic. And many of the friends of my children and here in this community have emulated and played out what Moynihan talked about. And so my exploration in the Moynihan Report is to really begin to kind of figure out how we got to where we are, how neighborhoods like this has transformed over the last 48 to 50 years, the solutions that we need to put together to turn that trend around, and how we begin to open up a dialogue that allows us to really explore what Senator Moynihan talked about in that report and how we can create a different narrative for our people in the future. The Moynihan Report basically prescribes for us a formula to which we should be addressing fatherhood. I mean, the core of the report spoke to the issue of employment, particularly for black men. It spoke to our contributions to our children. And so to look at that report and think that it has absolutely nothing to do with responsible father is a mistake is a mistake for us to go down that road. And so while many people want the responsible fatherhood work to simply be just take time to be a dad, or 20 million children wake up each morning without their children in their life, it's so much more than that. The work is so much broader than that. It is single mothers, it is youth, it is violence, it is education, it is any and everything that surrounds a man's ability to be a responsible and sober father and partner in his life and to his family and community. And so us looking and delving into the Moynihan Report is not a departure from our work. It is a deepening, broadening, and stretching of our work to be able to be conscious about all those things that affect fathers with respect to their ability to be dads. Now, many can talk and dissect why men, began to depart from the lives of their children back then, but the reality was there were systems in place, systems of racism, systems of inequality, systems of incarceration, systems of alienation. All kinds of systems were in place that were literally, in some instances, driving these dads, out of the home. And so the Moynihan Report really spoke to what was taking place, and it was really a snapshot. I think most people, when they read the Moynihan Report, at least this is what I get out of it. I think that most people, when they see the Moynihan Report, they do see a forecast, but I think you see more in the report when you look at it as a snapshot as opposed to a forecast. And I think what Moynihan was saying is, this is the snapshot of black families in America in 1965. This is what it looks like. And based on this data, if we don't do something about it, situations for black families in America would be worse. And I think that what we see today is that prescription playing itself out? You know, the solution is complex, but I think in a single word, it is activation. I think that we spend so much time, in fact, I think we spend too much time talking about solutions that we already know are solutions. We're not coming up with anything new under the sun with respect to how to change the conditions of children and black families in America. We've always known that men needed jobs. We've always known that women needed jobs. We've always known that children need a great education. We've always known that housing had to be adequate. We've always known that economic stability was crucial to the development of our families. And so what are we talking about? You know, we're not talking about things that we don't already know. But the thing that we very rarely talk about is the issue of activation, which is now that we know what has to be done, how do we actually do it? How do we get people motivated to actually go out and implement the things and the solutions that we've been talking about ad nauseum literally since the 60s?